Have you had an encounter with the king of the forest and you'd like to hear it narrated on this channel? Well, if so, send me an email with all the details. You can email me at contact@buckeyebigfoot.com. Hey there, welcome back. I'm glad you could make it because we're just about to head out for another journey down into Sasquatch Valley. So go grab your snackage and let's get started. I saw what I am positive was a Bigfoot creature. I was in Missouri on 21 heading north. Out of nowhere, a storm blew up. I was on my motorcycle, which is a Honda Goldwing. It got dark fast, and the rain was coming down crazy hard and fast. It whipped up out of nowhere, and it turned everything a dark gray color. It was around 6 p.m. in the summer, but you'd have thought it was almost midnight, it got so dark. Usually when this happens, I make a run for the next exit to take shelter in some gas station or store, but there was nowhere that I knew of straight ahead or behind me for many miles. I was not on the interstate. I was stuck in the proverbial rock in a hard place. I couldn't take my bike too far off the road. Once you got off the shoulder, the ground dipped down pretty far, like a natural ditch area, and I knew I would never get that bike back up out of there by myself. My bike rolls around 1,000 pounds loaded. Now that's a half ton. She's a big bike, but I am not a big guy. So if it went down that side into the ditch, it wasn't going to come up on the other side on slick grass and mud under the grass. No way. So my options weren't real great. Stay on the pavement. Bad idea. Get low to the ground in a crouch? Normally, yes, but the lowest point was that ditch, and it was already filling up with water. What should I do? Go stand under the trees? That wasn't a really good option either, not with a hot storm full of lightning. Should I stand there with my bike just off the road shoulder? Well, that was a really bad idea too. I risked getting hit by a car with such low visibility out there. Not much for options, so I crouched down about midway between the ditch runoff and the trees, and I did this about 20 feet behind my bike. I figured a compromise of getting down low, but staying off the pavement, out of water, and not directly under a tree, maybe that might work. Well, I hoped anyway. I didn't have much else choice. And if I was behind the bike, I could hopefully see any car coming and get out of the way in time. So there you have the situation I found myself in, and how I was trying to reason through how best to handle it. I think under the circumstances, I did as well as could be expected. But what I didn't expect, and I think what no one would normally expect, is that my bike would somehow attract the attention of a Bigfoot. I was crouched and looking back and forth both ways along the road, looking for any headlights coming. That's when I saw a dark, shadowy shape walk out of the trees and walk over to my bike. I suppose it was the emergency blinkers on the bike that caught its attention. I was paralyzed as I crouched there. I watched it walk all around my bike. It's like it didn't know what to think of it. But it did not look at me. The Bigfoot looked around and touched a lot of things on my bike, especially the seat. This lasted for about 10 seconds. Thankfully, it didn't touch any of the hot parts. I didn't want an angry Bigfoot on my hands. About that time, way off, I saw headlights coming. Now, this is not a divided highway. This is a 2-lane road, so the oncoming car, well, it would be able to see that Bigfoot with their headlights. It too saw the headlights, and it suddenly stepped down into the ditch, crouching low enough that it probably couldn't be seen unless you were looking for it. I still remember the shock of that moment as I realized it saw the headlights coming, and it knew what those meant, and it knew it should stay out of sight. This was a thinking and reasoning creature. I've never forgotten that, and neither should you. It was just as the car passed. There was another round of successive lightning strikes that lit up the sky and the ambient area all around with white light. This lasted perhaps a second and a half, but in that time the Bigfoot was following the car as it passed us, and it was turning its head like it was tracking it. That's when the lightning lit everything up, including me. Now it saw me. For a split moment, we looked right at each other. My heart fell to the ground. Here I was within sight of a Bigfoot. It lit up, and then everything went back to being shadowy, stormy, dark, and it was terrifying. I couldn't move. I was crouched and shaking, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I saw the shadow rise up, and I was pretty sure these were my last moments on Earth. It moved so fast I had trouble following it with my eyes in the semi-darkness. It was just a shadow moving in a dark, shadowy environment. It was not coming for me, but it went on across the 2 lanes of road. I had one last look at the back of it when another lightning strike lit up the area momentarily. I was shaking, and I couldn't believe what I had just seen, but I knew it was true, and I wasn't imagining it. I decided, rain or no rain, lightning or no lightning, I was going to get out of there. I got on my Honda and went down the road as fast as I dared until I came to a town called Centerville. I waited there till the rest of the storm and the rain was over. There was nowhere I saw to stay, no little motel, so I headed on over to Lesterville on the advice of a local, and I treated myself to a rare motel room stay. I normally slept in a tent, but not that night. Between storms and knowing there was a Bigfoot in the area, I was not sleeping in a tent. I realized at that point that I was miles and miles away from the Bigfoot by then, and logic told me, though, if there was one in the area, there were likely others somewhere nearby. There has to be a breeding population, right? I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was afraid, but because my mind was going 100 miles a minute. I kept thinking about it over and over, replaying it in my mind. The conditions there, they were rainy, stormy, and dark, but I'm certain what I saw was not a human. It could not have been. If you had seen the way it stepped into and out of that deep ditch, it was like us stepping straight up with our feet on the kitchen floor and raising one leg up to the kitchen counter and pulling ourselves up with no effort at all. That's what it was like. It looked unnatural. And it was only maybe 6 or 6.5 feet tall. It was taller than me, I'm pretty sure, but it wasn't some towering 9-foot Bigfoot like you hear about all the time. Maybe this was a younger one. I think the fur might have been black. It was hard to tell when the lightning lit it up. I have an impression of the face, though. It's all I could see in the lightning flash. There was hair everywhere, and the head and the face were much wider than a normal person's. But honestly, that's all I can really clearly remember. The lightning flash was like a light bulb going off in a dark room, and I didn't get to look at it very long. I still roam the U.S. on my bike most of the year, as I have done now for about 9 years. But I think I'm getting closer to a time where I think maybe I need to put down some roots. Preferably, that is, nowhere near Bigfoot country. Admittedly, it didn't hurt me, but I don't care to ever tangle with one, even at a distance. Like I said, I'm not a big guy. You can use my first name, Mark. I grew up in Minerva, Ohio, population 3,200. And Minerva is sort of famous for the Minerva monster. It was 1972 and I was 14 years old. 4 friends and I had heard of an abandoned house out in the woods some 2 miles out of town. We rode our bikes to where we were told it was on a dirt road. We dropped our bikes and walked maybe 600 yards into the woods, and we found the house. My guess It was built around 1900-ish. The two-story house had no doors and no glass in the windows with a big hole in the roof. It had a big rotting covered front porch with no railings. We looked around the front for a few minutes, picked up some rocks in case of animals in the house, and went in the front entrance. I had walked to the back of the front room to see the kitchen in the back. I was looking out the back window from the doorway, and I saw a big black animal pass the window from right to left. I couldn't see a head or anything, just a body, but I could tell it was walking. I yelled bear, because we do have black bears, although rarely, in the area. I ran out the front door with everybody behind me. We jumped off the front porch and we turned around about 30 feet from the house and looked back. Just then, this huge, hairy head looks around the corner of the house and under the porch roof. Now, the porch was 2 feet off the ground, and the ceiling for the porch had to be 8 feet above the porch floor. And this thing had to duck its head to see under the ceiling. So I am guessing it was 8 to 9 feet tall. We all screamed, and some of us swore. Randy, who was the closest to the house, had a big smooth rock in his hand and threw it at the beast and hit it right between the eyes. Lucky shot. The Bigfoot let out a scream. Now it was pissed, and it steps onto the front porch, which gives way and falls through, and it's now stuck up to its shoulders. We guessed there was a root cellar under the porch. That saved our lives. We took off as fast as we could for our bikes. I could hear this thing ripping up all the wood behind us, trying to get out. We all get to our bikes and start pedaling for our lives. Some of the guys were crying. Another boy peed himself, and we were all shaking. We decided on the ride back to town and go to the police station. We just got laughed at, and we were told it was probably a bear, no matter how much we insisted it wasn't. Finally, the chief got angry at us and told us all to go home. He called all of our parents and told them we were trying to make a false report. Some of us got into a lot of trouble at home. Some of the parents believed us. My mom, she thought it was funny. I slept next to a window for the rest of the summer with my shotgun next to my bed. None of us ever went back. We took a lot of teasing and a couple of fistfights that summer. It was about 4 years later, I think, that the Minerva monster took place, and I was a freshman in college. I felt vindicated after that documentary came out. I was living out of state, and I got a few phone calls to see if I thought it was the same Bigfoot. After the film came out, well, all of a sudden, more people told their stories. It seems Bigfoot had been seen more frequently than people thought. Please don't use my name, but you can use my initials. Signed, J.B. A big thank you to both of those people who sent those in. J.B., you certainly have my attention, seeing that Minerva is right here in the Buckeye state of Ohio. And, you know, if you can give any more on that location privately, if it's still available, I would love to drive up and see it. So let me know. I'd be interested in that one. So, all right, everyone, listen, I don't have much else to say. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. We will be getting together real soon again. And until we do, you know what I'm going to say. Always remember, absence of proof is not proof of absence. Thanks for listening.